Lee, I think you're muted. We haven't heard anything yet.
Oh, thank you. Here I've been going on and on and on. Thank you so much for telling me that. Okay, so let's start over again. I just want to welcome everybody to the Resident and Family Support Council meeting that we hold every other Tuesday, actually the second and the fourth Tuesday of every month at 3 o'clock. Remember, the link always stays the same so that you can access these meetings whenever, very, very easily, always using that same link. I just want to remind everybody that the purpose of this meeting is to empower people with information so that we can all feel that we can be more supported in this long-term care world as we're trying to navigate this. And that information that we share not only gets shared by the people that are talking and doing the presenting of our main topic for the day, but also amongst everybody who just joins the conversation. We do really enjoy the input and the information that we're all getting from each other. I know I learn a lot at these meetings, and I'm hoping that other people feel the same way. Today, we actually have a really, really exciting conversation happening. I'm really excited about it. We've got Carrie. Carrie is a mother of a son who lives in a long-term care facility. She's having issues, though. I hear her saying that she's having issues. She still can't hear anything. So she just stepped away. I see she's on the video right now. So I think she's trying to figure that out. And then we also have Julia, who is a nurse at the facility that Carrie's husband is in. And Julia is actually going to be sharing what that looks like from that medical side, what that looked like from the facility side, in order to make her son going, Carrie's son going out, be very, very successful. So this is not just talking about Carrie actually happened to take her son away on a vacation for a week, which is, we're going to hear all about that. And she'll even going to share some pictures, I believe. But it's also just about taking your loved one out for a couple of hours or even for the evening. You should feel empowered to be able to do that. That is something that you should be able to do with the facility's assistance. And so we do want to encourage that people get to continue to live life while they live in a long-term care facility. It can get complicated the longer an individual is away from the facility. So you really do need to partner with the facility in order to do that. And that's why I brought Julia into the conversation as well, so she can share what that looks like. Carrie, are you able to hear now? Are you?
Yes, so can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm not sure how I'm gonna make this work because I had to come in on my iPad.
Okay.
So you're probably gonna have to show the slides because for some reason I am not working correctly on my computer.
Got it. I can do that. I can do
that. Let me see if let me turn my camera on.
We can see you on the one already, Carrie. So
okay, there you go. So, and you can hear us, right?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, so that's fine. I'll leave it just sitting the way that it is. I don't know. It keeps telling me to join audio and I don't know why I'm having a problem with it. So we'll worry about that later.
Yeah, so you can go ahead and you can look at this screen because this is the screen and just use the other.
Right, and so, and I have it mine. So if you want to pull up the first slide, Lee.
Yes.
Okay.
And I am making sure that I can find that. I had to put it down because I wasn't going to share it. So
sorry, that's okay.
It's okay. Just give me a second so I can get out of this PowerPoint. Whoops.
You know, technology doesn't love us.
Yes.
So like Lee said, I took my son away for a week. My father had passed away and we were going to North Carolina for his memorial. And being the fact that my son basically hadn't left his facility very much in 2.5 years, we decided to turn it into a vacation while we were there. And my son is very medically complex, so it became even a bigger deal to take him out of the facility and leave for a week. And so what I did was I went to the facility ahead of time, spoke with them. Thank God they decided Julia here was going to help me get this all sorted and organized. To give everyone an example, my son probably takes 25 pills a day and about 5 insulin shots and things down his G-tube. So we go every route possible by mouth, G-tube, injections. So there was a lot to coordinate just to take the supplies, let alone to know that I knew what I was doing. I did it for years, but it was, oh, I'm not used to doing it every day any longer. And it was very nervous to do. I was very nervous to do it because, one mistake and you're in trouble. So where we started, like I said, where I started was really going to the second slide, Lee, was making sure. Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't used this before, so I'm not clear on how.
Okay, let me see if it lets me share my screen on my name. Go with Carrie and not with the Illinois caregivers.
No, I can't. I can't let you. You should be able to share your screen.
Okay,
I just don't know how to show it on a Google document.
that's fine. All you have to do is hit the next one down and it should give you the next slide.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay. We'll do it this way. That's fine. Okay. Sorry.
There you go. So, like I said, we started with really speaking to the facility and working with them to make sure that while we were gone for 7 days, that all of a sudden when we went to pack the meds the night before, we weren't going to find out they only had 4 days worth of any medication, because unlike being at home, facilities cannot refill as early. So that was our first hurdle, was to make sure that we had everything we needed. And then from there, the nurses started gathering things. And I'm gonna let Julia, you can go to the next slide, Lee. I'm gonna let Julia explain to you guys what it took to gather everything together to get us ready before we even got to the point of separating medications.
So it was probably about 2 weeks prior to the trip, we started contacting pharmacies, seeing what we could reorder and get sent out ahead of time medication wise. There was a liquid that we were able to change to a pill form to make that trip a little easier as well. And then about 4 days prior to going over the medication, we started gathering everything in bags. So anything he needed, his kits, any treatment stuff, any extra things that we thought he would need, we had made lists and started putting them in bags. So when Carrie came in the night before the trip, her and I got all the medications, we took everything, and she had a medication administration record. I had my own, and we were going off them. So she's saying a medication, I'm finding the medication. We're both talking and confirming dosages, amounts, everything.
Lee, will you pull up the MAR that shows the med pages? Just so we can kind of explain to people what we're talking about there.
Sure. At this?
Go to the next one.
Okay.
So here, and this is one of the things people need to understand. Do you know how to read this? First of all, so this is what most MARs look like, where it tells you what you need to do, what times it gets done, and here is the record of what the facility had done for the month.
So Carrie, could you explain what MAR means? What does MAR?
It is the medication administration record.
Okay.
Okay. And you don't ever want to leave your facility, especially overnight, without having a complete copy of this with you. Because if you wind up having to go to an emergency room, they need this.
So
This
to
is-
understand that this is the MAR, the medication administration record, includes every medication that your son was on, or that every resident in the facility is on.
Correct. Including PRNs.
Great.
Okay. So if you go to the next page, so if you look here, so that first page, everything was the same dose for all the scheduled times.
Mhm.
This next page is the same medication, but each dose is a different milligram. So it's really important that you learn how to read it before you take your loved one out. If you're taking them for 3 or 4 hours, they're probably going to give you one little packet of pills and say, here, give them this, or we'll do it when they come back.
Mhm.
But being the fact that we were gone for a week And like I said, my son takes about 25 pills a day and 5 injections. It was important that everybody understood how to read it, what it says. And this, for my son, his med records work out to be about 18 pages. I could not work off of 18 pages while I was gone. So we made a condensed list so I could look at it and say, okay, I know this is correct.
And this is where Julia really stepped in and really
Right.
make sure, first of all, that you had the medication that you needed, the right amounts for the entire trip, as well as making sure that you understood how to read the MAR and how to make sure you're administering the drugs properly.
Correct. And we went one step further. We actually sorted all of his doses for the week into pill boxes before we left to prevent error. Okay. And
So that
because-
sounds like a good hint, a good technique to share with people.
absolutely, and ask the facility to do this with you, especially if somebody's on a lot of medications, because, you know, his morning dose is like 11 pills. And, you know, the facilities use cards that pop pills out, and one for each dose. And that gets overwhelming when you have 10, 12, 13 cards in front of you and you're having to figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
So if you go back 2 pages, Lee, to the first page in the MAR. So this one here, it's really important you have all your information with you. One more, there you go. This has every one of my son's doctors, who they are, what their phone number is, what their address is, and their NPR number, which helps other doctors and hospitals. So if I had to walk into an emergency room, I had everything in front of me of what did the doctors need to contact one of my son's doctors.
So
Okay.
this is like what some people might refer to as a face sheet.
Yes.
Would that be a term that you would hear in the long-term care world? Okay.
Yes, okay, so and that is your face sheet. It also comes with, I think I put it in there, I hope. Maybe not. The face sheet also, as you're going through, and I guess I didn't get them all in there, will include all of their diagnosis. Okay. So one of the things we did as before we do this, and we've done it before, is highlight things that are important. You know, his seizure disorder, his epilepsy, his pancreatitis. But on top of that, I usually will go through and mark things that are PRN because they're all on there. You can't just make them disappear. So you want, the more information you can prepare yourself with this and your nurses before you leave, the better you are. In case there's an emergency, in case there's a mistake.
And I'm assuming that then just gives such peace of mind to you as you are going on the trip, as well as the facility giving them peace of mind, knowing that the parent in this particular situation understands what is necessary to happen in order for him to have a successful trip with his
Right.
family.
And so my son, like I said, is diabetic. He wears a blood sugar meter called a Dexcom. We did not know how it would work once we were out of town. Till the nurses texted me or called me, I don't remember which, and said to me, "Oh my God, you are doing a great job keeping this blood sugar right on track." Because all of a sudden they were able to figure out, they were able to see it on their phone too. So they literally were able to watch as we were going, kind of knowing what was going on, because his blood sugars tell you a lot. So using technology, if it's there, use it. I will say again and again, mistakes happen. It's inevitable. You cannot help it. You get overwhelmed, you're tired. But it's how do you fix the mistake? And I did. I made a mistake with his insulin one night while we were gone. It was a mistake that because he lived at home for so long, it was a mistake I had made before. So I knew how to correct the mistake. But there was another point during the trip that we were out late one night. I didn't want to give him his medicine and have him start falling asleep while we're out in a bar with him having a good time. And I called back to the facility. I'm like, just reassure me that it's okay that I give this 2 hours late. You know, so using those things to your advantage and all of that, and Lee will post all of these, are in the slides of, you know, what do you do? How do you ask? You know, I've put in here everything from, you know, starting with like the residents' rights of, because facilities will say, oh, you can't take them out. Yes, you can. This came right out of the residents' rights. And this will be posted. I take my son out a lot on day trips. I live 2 blocks away, so we bring him home regularly. And these are the things that are on that for a day trip. These are the things that I follow and the facility follows.
So if we could back that up just for a second,
Yeah.
because what you did was amazing, Carrie, to be able to take your son away for a vacation for a week. Not many people are comfortable in doing that, and or if they're dealing with an elderly, frail member, staff, loved one, they might not want to go away for a week either. Whereas your son is younger and has more of this desire to want to, like my mother doesn't even like to go away for a week vacation anymore, being away from home that long.
Right.
So I think it's important for everyone to just realize that these are your rights. If you live in a long-term care facility, that you do have that right to be able to participate in that social and the community activities as you put on your slide here, and to make your own choices and to choose your activities and schedules, and you have the right to leave the facility to fulfill those.
And, you know, it doesn't have to be a week-long trip. I helped a gentleman about a year ago organize how to take his mom out to go to her sister's funeral 150 miles away. And they had never taken her out of the facility because she moved in during COVID.
Mhm.
And he had to go even further, was he hired a CNA to go with them. He hired a transport company to transport, okay? And those things, you know, depending on what you're looking to do, you might need to. I hired somebody and brought somebody with us to help my husband and I. I knew that physically we could not do 100% of it for 7 days. So I have a friend whose son is very good helping with my son physically. He didn't do the meds, I did, but he can help with the physical aspects of in and out of the car, giving showers, in and out of the pool, those things, because I knew it was the muscle part of this that I couldn't physically do.
Mhm.
And then when you go to the day trip screen, there you go. It talks about what do you need? How, you know, if you can give the facility even a day's advance notice to tell them that you are going to take them out. If you're unsure of the medications, those things, you want a copy of that MAR. It's no big deal. They print them all day long. Okay. And if you're comfortable or they don't think you need it, they can just give you what do you need and write it down too. Okay. It depends on the facility. The absolute most important thing is turning your meds back in when you're done. And most places will make you sign them in and make you sign them out. Informing the nurse on duty of what was given when, and if you had any issues or accidents. Okay. Whether it is you messed up a medication or you were transferring and you did a controlled fall to the floor. Even though it was controlled and nobody was hurt, they still need these information. They're required to chart those. And that's what people have to understand, is that when you are gone, they're still responsible. In the end, they are still ultimately responsible. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so Julia, if you could speak to that, how does that feel as a staff member who, you know, as a nurse who cares for these residents on the day-to-day, and, you know, you're caring for them in the building? How do you, first of all, what are your thoughts about loved ones taking their residents out? Do you think that, are you an advocate for that? Well, I mean, tell me a little bit about that, and from your opinion as a nurse who's been doing this for a while.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate for it. I think it's incredible. I think it's needed. I've done trips with her son. I've done trips with other residents and day trips and outings and things like that. It's important to do those things. I feel like the facility should always be encouraging that and helpful. It's about succeeding. You want these trips to be a success. So you want to give your loved ones, give the residents, families, all of them the tools they need for success. Because if they succeed, we succeed, the resident succeeds, everyone does. So I think it's important, and it's important that family members are able to have that open relationship with that staff that's there. It's a team.
Do you see a difference in the residents in how they respond and how they return and how what the reaction is post or pre and post to this whole idea of going out for what I would call myself a special day or a special couple of days or whatever? Do you see any, like, can you speak to the benefits that you see?
Yeah, their mood's much improved.
You know,
They're happier.
Okay, and it's
It's-
memory creating for them, right? They're going.
it is, it's, you know, and it's about still making memories why, you know, while you can, and giving them something that means something to them, you know. So the picture of this is both of my sons. That's about a little over, it was actually one of my son's first time out of the facility when COVID started. He went to his dad's for the day and my other son was in town. And when they got down to his dad's new house, first thing he wanted to do was get on the four-wheeler. And we live in the world that we're like, okay, that's fine, get on the four-wheeler then. You know, when we were in North Carolina, he was adamant he was going out with my brother one night to have a beer. And no, Mom, you're not going with us. I'm going out with the guys. And that's exactly what he did. He went out, he had a beer or two, you know, everybody that was with him knew enough to be able to, you know, keep them in one piece, and all else fails, you call 911. And we didn't need. And
makes me smile so much because you really see that. I know we've talked about this before in our work group stuff, is that, you know, you shouldn't be going into a long-term care facility. You go there to continue to live.
correct.
And having the support of the facility in order to be able to go out and do these things as a mother must be very reassuring to you, but then also to see your boys together creating
Right.
memories.
Well, and on
Gotta
top,
be
you know, like the
special.
picture up top, you know, Thanksgiving is only 6 weeks away, folks. If you want to bring your loved one home for Thanksgiving, talk to your facility, see what you need to do to make it possible. You know, I needed to borrow a sling. Thank God, because we actually wound up using it just to help transferring him. And we wound up using it in a pool because the hotel we were at, their lift didn't work. Surprise, surprise. But we wound up figuring out real quick that this sling also helped us when we had him in bed, because we could roll him easier when he needed help. So ask them, hey, can I borrow this? Or do I need to rent it? Tell me, where can I rent these things? You know, it's all doable if you talk to them, because they're going to figure it out. So then if you go to the public transport page, which is the next one, the top thing on here we very much come up with is probably your most thing. First of all, you must have a current ID to get on a plane today. Okay. Less than a year from now, you must have a real ID to get on a plane. So, especially for elderly people, it's difficult to get all of the documentation they need to get a real ID.
Mhm.
I would say in the long run, it's actually easier to get a passport. It costs 3 times as much, but remember, after May 1st of next year, you have no choice. It's a passport or it's a real ID. When it came to what would we send on the plane, we really debated this for days with Lens Medicine of, was security going to let me through with all these pill pop? You know, I used pill boxes like everybody else, and I had taped them all shut. Was security really going to let me through with all these pills without it being labeled? And we decided we were going to try it that way because I couldn't carry everything otherwise. But anything else that I had, Tylenol, Motrin, like I said, he has a G tube. So I had the feed that goes down his tube, and his is a very limited amount that he gets, but all of those things, I carried on. If it is medically related, you can carry on medication, liquids, a pump, anything you need that is a prescription, they have to let you have. My son can't go through the metal detectors because he has so many gizmos and gadgets in his body. So you have to plan that. Okay, it's going to take extra time to get through security. They literally took apart my med bag piece by piece and looked at every single thing that was in there. Certain things they decided to swab to make sure there was no bomb or gun residue. Because I was his chaperone per se, they then, even though I'd been through security, they swabbed my hands and my legs and his wheelchair and different things to make sure. So it's being prepared. You need a lot of extra time. Even here, you know, sitting in the airport, we were pre-boarding all the rest. And depending on if you're the first person on that flight, or if that plane has come from somewhere else, how easy it is or isn't it to get on or off the plane. So like our second flight had come from somewhere else and we were on Southwest, so it's just open boarding. And people decided, everyone that had been on the plane had moved forward. And the stewardess didn't block a row for us. We had to take him back 5 rows. And Alex, who's sitting over by the window, actually had to pick Lynn up and move him because we couldn't keep him walking enough to get, you know, we wheelchaired him as far as we did, but we didn't take the wheelchair onto the plane to make, because he does walk some, which was our mistake, we found out. Also, if you're traveling with wheelchairs, if you have an opportunity to use a cheaper chair, a transport chair, something that is not a $15,000, $20,000 or $30,000 chair, don't take your electric chair if you don't have to. Absolutely don't take your electric chair if you don't have to. And even your manual chairs, take lots of pictures, whatever, because they're going to take them and they're going to put them under the belly of the plane. Airlines do not have good history with wheelchairs. There's a lot going on right now with the National Transportation and Safety to put a program in place for different kinds of seating and for wheelchairs, because this is such an issue. And make sure you notify people when you buy that ticket, there's a place to mark, will you need an assistance? Will you need a wheelchair? Anything else? Mark it. Take every bit of help you can get, because you are going to need it, whether you think you do or not. And I've been traveling with him since he was 6 weeks old. So it's not like I was new to this. But the older he's gotten, the less physically able he's gotten, the harder this has gotten. And then when you go to the next page, this goes back to where we were talking about what you need for an overnight stay. How do you prepare? How do you get ready? And it's really important because you don't think about, okay, until you're ready of, ooh, did somebody pack his clothes? Am I doing it or are they doing it? Do they own enough underwear and socks to get through that many days? Because I want to buy all new underwear, socks, and shorts, because I figured out, yeah, he probably didn't have enough to get through that many days because they do laundry every day. And I definitely wasn't doing that on the trip. So it's those kind of things. And Julia will tell you, I gave everybody lists. And I do it all the time of, here, this is what I need before I take him, or this is what I'm going to need, because it helps everybody, you know, having a contact person to help you prepare. And hopefully, if you do have an issue while you're gone, knowing who to call and speak with at the facility while you're gone. Okay, they're there 24/7. They know what they're doing, sometimes better than we do. Like I said, I called and double checked about giving medication 2 hours late. I knew the answer. I knew I was fine, but it was that nervous mom who was like, I was tired and I just wanted somebody to reassure me.
Makes sense. Which
Correct.
makes sense. Always err on the side of caution.
Caution.
Strongly.
So on the next page, just some real highlights of what we've said. You know, a list of what you need for overnights, you know, what you do in case of a medication question or mistake while you're out of the facility. Understand that the mistake is going to happen. Don't let it ruin your trip. You know, fix it, do the best you can, and move on, because that's the only thing you can do. and ask for help everywhere you go. You know, we all been there where somebody won't open the door for you while you're trying to push the person and deal with the door in the wheelchair. Just say to the next person that comes in, hey, can you give me a hand? 99 times out of 100, they're going to, even if they don't at first, especially once you ask, because then they feel guilty. And it works. And then when you go to the next one, it goes kind of back to where Julia was talking about of outings, regular outings. So this is what an outing is all supposed to be. It should be resident centered. It should be, what does the resident want to do? It should be based off of their interests, not the facilities. In the residents' rules or through CMS, they're required to do this, folks. If you're in a skilled nursing, if you're in an ICF, if you're in a facility that takes Medicaid, Medicare, they're required to take residents on outings. And it doesn't have to mean that everybody is going to watch the same movie. If that isn't what interests your loved one or makes them happy, speak up. I'm gonna let Julia explain the first two pictures to you, and then I will explain the third one.
So the first picture, we went to the Illinois State Fair to see Disturbed. So he was so excited. He loves them, and it had been planned for months. Carrie had it planned out real, was it April?
Yes.
So we had the best time, and we left. I mean, we left at 4 and got home close to 2 a.m. I believe. Because
it stormed that night and the concert was delayed and
yep,
all the rest of it. So the next one.
That is a tattoo appointment. So he goes out quite a bit for fresh ink.
And Julia's, so he has 7 tattoos, 6 of which the facility has taken him for, okay? And none of his tattoos can be done in a single city. He just doesn't have it in him. So every tattoo is at least 2 appointments for him. So, and then the last picture was probably about this time last year. As you can see, there are 4 residents there. They're in my backyard. We had a cookout and a bonfire. And granted, I'm very lucky. I only live 2 blocks from them. So there's lots of ways to get them all to my house. But literally, it was colder than we'd planned and all the rest. So they brought the van, they packed them up, they loaded them, they came over. I had other people here besides my husband and I to help. So Adam, who is in the middle, who goes everywhere with everybody, was able to do this. You know, it doesn't have to be just bring your loved one home. Is Mary their best friend and they love doing things together? First of all, if Mary's her own guardian, she can decide she wants to go home with your mom. And B, if she has a guardian, speak to them. If you're comfortable doing this, you know, everybody in that picture, one of them does have a guardian, or 2 of them do. And that's all the facility did, is they called the guardians and asked, hey, can they go to Lynn's house for a few hours? And granted, because we're a small facility and most everybody knew who I was anyway, but there are ways to make it work.
So I think part of the message that I'm hearing here as well is, first of all, you got to let people live. Getting a tattoo, dynamite, you know, he's a young man and this is what he wants to do. And he gets to continue to do that. Go to a concert, fantastic. Go to your friend, have your friends come on over to your parents' house and hang out for a bit.
Right.
I think some of this also is looking at, so how can other people apply this? So sometimes it could be just, you don't necessarily need to have a bus. Look to see, where can you walk to? Where can you go have a picnic to? Where can you, if church is even close, can residents go to church instead of having it in the facility? Can people go for that picnic? Is there a shopping center that you can walk to from the facility to have people be able to go out?
And we're lucky because we're in a town of 7,500. There's a park in walking distance. There's a church in walking distance here. There is one restaurant within walking distance. So people, you know, families here do some of those things with their loved ones because we're in a small little town. But when Julia said, you know, they took Lynn to the state fair, we're talking, we're 100 miles from Springfield or thereabout. So it wasn't like it was just, oh, let's go to the fair. You know, it took some planning.
How did you
But
arrange
these-
for transportation for that, Carrie?
The facilities use their bus,
Wow.
okay? And we're very lucky because the facility we're in. But if not, call a transportation company. That's what they do. Hire one. Yes, it can be expensive. When we took one on this trip, we won't even go into what it cost me overall. I mean, I paid the guy who went with us, I paid him to be there the entire time, and I paid all his expenses. So this was not a cheap trip,
Mhm.
but it was important to me that Lynn, if we were gonna go, that we were gonna make a vacation out of this. He had already missed my stepdad's memorial, like almost a year to the day prior, because we weren't allowed to travel yet with him. And I was not gonna make him miss my dad's.
Mhm.
You know, his grandparents were his world. So it was really important that he could go. And everybody felt that whatever it took, we were gonna make it work. I don't know, obviously, who's on the call today, who's not. Julia and I will answer any question anybody has,
Mhm.
if that helps anyone. You know, it's like I said, everything is about how do you plan this? How do you make it successful?
Well, I loved hearing the story. I mean, it's so important to hear that this can happen, and also not to minimize it, how complicated it actually can be. But you did it for a week. It's much less complicated to do it for an hour.
Yes.
Much less. A little bit more complicated to do it in for an overnight. I see a hand. Teresa, did you have a question?
Ooh, I do, or a comment maybe, and let me take that hand down before I forget.
Hi,
I just-
Teresa.
Hi, Carrie. Well, first I want to say it was very informative. I took a lot of notes on this. And I'm assuming, and anybody else who might be on the call who's thinking, this looks really intimidating. I don't know that I could do this, but I think what we should understand is open communication, a team effort with the facility, number one. Number two, don't start trying to plan it like the day before or something. Really kind of have a thought out plan, almost like project management, right? And giving everybody their assigned tasks to make it all work perfectly. It seems like what you did, even though you talked about a couple of things, it happened, it was seamless in the way it happened, or at least it appears so in this presentation. I'm sure you
Honestly,
have stories, but I
honestly,
think that what you portrayed here is the fact of preparation is everything.
and I would say really, it was seamless to the point. Like I said, my son has seizures. We managed the entire trip until we got back to St. Louis. The facility actually had taken us to and from the airport to help us because you know, the wheelchair, it was more than we could get in any car we owned at that point. Literally, when we met the person from the facility at the pickup at the airport, soon as he saw her and he's like, okay, I'm home, I'm tired. He had a seizure. Not that it was out of the norm, it's common for him anyway, but it was like, okay, I managed to hold it together this whole time. It's now okay. My brain says I can do this now. And where, you know, some people would freak out by it, for us, it was almost comical that he managed to wait until we were back in St. Louis to do it.
Yeah. And I would guess that when you do this as a team project, I mean, who takes the lead? Do you take the lead, even though you're in uncharted waters? Do you take it, or do you kind of have just everybody's on the even plane here when you have somebody at the facility helping you?
We work with Lynn as an even playing field. Okay. Granted, again, it goes back to, first of all, I live 2 blocks from this facility. I'm there all the time. I am not the person that shows up on Sunday at noon to feed him lunch. I show up anytime I choose 24/7. I am involved with all of his medical appointments and all that. So we work as a very even playing field. So the thing we probably need to add here, that's probably the most important, is when your facility tells you no, because we know some facilities are gonna do that. Oh, we can't let you leave, we'll lose our funding. We can't, no, first of all, the only time they can tell you that is if you're in a Medicare bed. Medicare is a 90-day night or 100 nights a year, and Medicare will not cover if you are gone overnight. So those 100 nights are different. Okay, that's first. When they tell you no, that's when you immediately need to call your ombudsman and get them involved. There is no reason people should not be leaving their facility regularly. The facility should be working with you. They're required to give you your medication. They can't tell you, well, you're gonna have to get the doctor to call it into Walgreens and you're gonna have to go pay for it and pick it up. Medicare or Medicaid has already paid for that medication. It's at the facility. They have it.
Yeah.
You
Thanks a
know,
lot.
do they have to give you your PRN or, your Tylenol, Advil, all those things? Probably not. I was very lucky that they did.
They have to.
They do have to
They
give
do
those.
have to. Also, I want to add, if they package medication, if you take your loved one for a day or just one overnight, they've packaged medications individually for you, and they have not included medications, or they say they're out of a medication, it is their responsibility to get you that medication. So if you take a loved one home and they didn't send you all the medicine, they have to get that medication to you. It doesn't matter if you're 2 hours away, they're supposed to be bringing it to you.
So, and we actually had this happen. Not on this trip. When we first moved in, Len used to go to Decatur every year for Christmas for 4 days. And they sent him and they forgot one of his insulins. And they forgot a seizure med. And they literally put another person in a van to drive medications to him. Because they had the choice. It was either pay Walgreens and get a prescription transferred or send somebody with it. And because of how expensive one of these medications were, they couldn't opt to pay for the medication. It just, somebody had to take it. So those are all, and like we said, this is all part of their regulations through CMS.
I want to address the intimidation piece, because I feel that like Teresa did say that it felt like it was seamless. But when you think about it, it's like, ooh, if I want to take mine out for lunch, how's this going to look? But I think some of those key messages that we just to kind of remind people that, number one, you have the right to be able to do that. No matter what their payer source is, you could take somebody out for lunch. And just start small. Don't start with a week vacation. Start small. Start with a lunch, because you want to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success, but also to understand that when you go out to lunch with people, sometimes it goes well and sometimes it doesn't go well. So it's the same thing that it could be with your loved one who happens to live in a long-term care facility. So if something doesn't go well, don't wave the white flag and say, I'll never do that again. Continue to try it. You'll get more comfortable with it.
Right. And it used to be that I took Len out all the time by myself. We would go to lunch, we would go meet other people, we would do things. I have learned now I physically can't do it by myself anymore. So either if I leave the facility and they help me get him in the van, I'm either meeting somebody that's capable to help me get him in and out of my car, or I'm coming home where my husband is, or somebody is here. And I will be the first to admit when we talk about a controlled drop, I've probably done it more times than most. He doesn't get hurt, but if you know you're transferring and all of a sudden they've lost control of their legs or something happened, you're much better off controlling, putting them to the ground safely than letting them plunk. But report it. I mean, I've learned we have two different cars. It used to be I could easily get them in one. Now it's easier to get them in the other. Learning those things. And Lee's right, start small. Whether it's lunch, it's just a drive in the country and stopping to get ice cream and leaving them in the car. But there are ways to do this. But don't try it overnight first. Like I said, we've done it.
I actually had a girlfriend, and her mother lived in an assisted living and had lived in a dementia care neighborhood in an assisted living. And she would take her out every week. And it started with going out for lunch, but then as her mother's disease progressed and her mother wasn't as ambulatory as she was, they would go for that ride. and they'd go for ice cream or they'd stop for a hot dog, and they drive to like Evanston at the beach area and just sit in the car and look at a beautiful view. Or they would, she'd take her on a scenic drive to go past her house that she grew up in. She talks about those memories still. She's so glad that she did that stuff with her mother, because it gave them something to do than just sitting there looking at each other during an entire visit when she was visiting her mother. And, we have a tendency when we go to visit somebody in long-term care, one of the first things out of our mouth is, how are you feeling? Well, they're probably not feeling so great because they're in a long-term care facility. It becomes all about health-related issues when you're visiting in the facility. When you take them out, it changes the way the conversation looks. It changes the way your relationship starts to develop. It doesn't just become about this relationship that's related to the healthcare setting and the healthcare situation. It makes it be more like a mother-daughter relationship, a mother-son relationship, a friend-to-friend relationship. It changes that back. So it can be very rewarding for everybody to take on something like this. And I really want to encourage people to think about that as we're approaching the holidays, even if it's just to have your loved one come over for a piece of pie at the end of the meal, or at Christmas, come over, go to church at Christmas time, to start small. Maybe not bring them around the crowd of 25 family members because you're not sure how that's going to play out for the individual, but go to church and see how that plays out.
Well, and as you work with your facility, there's lots of times that staff has come to my house with Lynn, to make it work. And I think one of the reasons for us this all works so well too is, most facilities have a transport person that runs somebody to and from the doctor's appointments. And anytime we can, when he has a doctor's appointment, A, I try to go to everyone that I can, but B, if their schedule allows for it, we stop and have a meal on the way home. It does multiple things. It keeps me comfortable with his medication and his insulin, because the transport person can't give that. That becomes my responsibility, and that's fine. But it also keeps other people in the facility comfortable with being out in the community with them, because it's not always the transport person who is taking us for an appointment. Sometimes it is a DSP, which in our world is the same thing basically as a CNA. It's just how our facility is set up. So it gets other people comfortable with this whole, including the nurses, knowing that if I'm leaving the building with Lynn, they always need to send his insulin and the medication he takes when he eats, because we might stop and eat and we might not.
Mhm.
But I can't do it if I don't have what I need.
Yeah. Does anybody, I just would be curious if anybody else that's on the call as we're continuing to talk about this, if they've ever taken their loved one out successfully or unsuccessfully, or they're thinking about doing it and there's some trepidation in what that might look like. Has this conversation sparked anybody's interest in wanting to do this potentially? Curious. I'm curious if anybody's feeling along those lines. So think about that and see if this is something, that you would like support in doing. And like Carrie said, do feel free, reach out to your ombudsman for any assistance in this, especially if you get any roadblocks that happen because of it. Know that the ombudsman will be there to support whatever it is that the resident wants. Remember that the resident is the person that is the client. So if this is what they want, then we're going to support it in whatever manner that we can.
And I know there's at least a few facilities on here, I can tell from the list of who's listening. And I don't know if it's residents or staff from these facilities, but please, yeah, if there's something I can do to help answer a question, or Julia, that's what we're here for.
Well, I have to say, Julia, I'm very impressed, number one, with Clinton Manor because of the freedom that it feels like they allow. I can't tell you if I know of another long-term care facility that allows a nurse to go to a concert with a resident. That's number one. Number two, I also don't know too many nurses who would do something like that as well. So I want to just say that I really admire who you are, because you have really embraced what truly means person-centered care.
So
You
we
really
have points at the facility that people argue over who's going out with who. Because it's not just Lynn, it's all our residents. They go to Cardinal games, they go to Blues games, you know. Lynn's not the only resident they've taken for tattoos, and
We have such, even if Clinton Manor said no, I would still go. Like, it doesn't matter to me. And we have a lot of staff members that feel that way, and you know,
do it on their own time.
it's important. It's important to me for them to have that.
And
They
it
need that.
goes all to the basis of everything that should go on in a facility, resident centered. No ifs, no ands, no buts. There should be nothing but that, you know?
absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
because not everybody wants to eat fried chicken on Thursday night and fried fish on Friday. You know, some people want to eat spaghetti and tacos every day.
Or a McDonald's hamburger can taste really, really good.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, and bringing it in is one thing, but it's fun to go to, even if it's a fast food place. It's, you know, I mean, you think about what we experience in our own lives and what we get to do as a person who lives in the community. And we should be affording people that live in a long-term care facility those same opportunities as those that live in a facility. And I hate that term facility because it should be somebody's home, but they do feel institutionalized because we're having this conversation. I wouldn't have this conversation with a girlfriend saying, you know, your child or your mother really does have a right to be able to go out, because we just naturally know that for someone that lives in their own home. But when it comes to a long-term care facility, it does feel restrictive. And we want to make sure the message that everybody's hearing is that it shouldn't be restrictive. It should be enhancing for somebody to be able to get those experiences that they continue to deserve throughout the course of life. That's really important. We're coming towards the end of the hour, and I want to just, if anybody has any questions about this and or any other topic, and I also want to remind that we also are doing testimonies. And I don't even know if you, Julia, if you would like to give us a testimony where I would just record you, and you could tell us why it's important for people to go out of the facility on outings. I don't know if you'd be willing to do that. Would you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stop the recording right now for this meeting. And then what I'm going to do is I'll restart it up